This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We got a lot to get to, as much as it's going to be hard for me to concentrate on everything else, knowing about this football game tonight. Chiefs Chargers to kick off week 2. Oh my God, it's going to be a beauty. Dusty Nielsen and I just finished up the lock shop today discussing the TNF game. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can pop onto social media and check that out if you like. And we've got a nice little parlay we put together with our friends at Coolbet for our Coolbet lines a little bit later on. But wow, we've got a lot to get to. Now, if it wasn't for Jets camp, rookie camp, and the trip out to Penticton and the big news on Roger Federer today, Remo and I could have probably done a full show basically a la the warm-up back from our prior days, because there was a chess controversy I discussed on Twitter last night, and one of the all-time self-own, self-ratio, self-cancellations in social media history as well. We will get to that a little bit later on. But we're going to talk Jets. Brandon Rewucki's going to jump on the program, and we're going to hear from a number of the young members of the organization that spoke for the first time in the last 24 hours, including Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert, as well as Cole Perfetti and Mark Morrison. So we'll have that for you coming up in the first part of the program, and then we'll kick it around with Rewucki a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to talk about the legend himself, Roger Federer, who announced today that he'll be playing the Laver Cup, and then that is it for his professional playing days. And we're certainly going to get to that in the Why Not question of the day in just a minute as well. But as always, first things first, we've got to thank the sponsors that make this show happen, because we're not here if they're not behind us, and all you great Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners and viewers aren't supporting them. Of course, our betting partner at Coolbet, Princess Auto and Not Auto Corp, Consolidated Supply, Vita Health, Wallace & Wallace, Culligan Water, Royal Sports, F Apparel, Boston Pizza, Aikens Lake, Canadian Club Whiskey, Breezy Bend, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, the great taste of Little Brown Jug, and our friends at Assiniboia Down. So lots to get to today on the program. Let's get Michael Remis in here and get this show on the road. While we welcome everyone joining us live on YouTube, make sure, especially if you're watching after the fact, make sure you've subscribed to the channel, hit that red subscribe button, and if you're able to, join us daily when we're live at 1, and if not, just check your feed as soon as you are able to, and the freshest, latest WST content will be there. And of course, subscribe on the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Just search Winnipeg Sports Talk. Remis, what's going on?
I'm here just counting down. I don't know if I'm counting down to what. It could be this awesome, game we're going to see tonight on Thursday night. It's on TSN in Canada. I know there's going to be a lot of people in the U.S. trying to figure out where they can watch it. It's on streaming only on Amazon Prime. We're in the era of sports where you got to have like a million channels to watch every game. It's getting stupid out there. But also the Jets YoungStars. This is exciting on the ice. Spoke to the media yesterday. We have some clips from players. They're going to be wearing jerseys, playing games against rival teams. We had our first media scrums yesterday, line rushes. Like, I could barely get a sentence out. I've calmed down. I'm ready for this. I mean, it's on YouTube, the game Friday night, so the links to all the games are in the description of this video. If you're having trouble finding them on the Jets channel, but we're close to regular training camp, so this is kind of like the opener.
Yeah, indeed. And, it'll be interesting. We're going to hear from the young members of the Jets in just a minute and talk a little bit more about what's to come over the next few days out in Penticton. And Brandon Rewucki is going to join us later on. Moe Khan as well in Montreal later on in the program. We'll get Mo's take on little NFL, little CFL as well heading into the weekend. Listen, I want to get to our why not question of the day right now, Remo. And we will have John Horn join us in a little bit to discuss the retirement announcement of the great Roger Federer. And I think I am a huge Roger Federer fan, and he is a guy that completely transcended the sport. When you think about the greatest athletes of the past couple generations, Roger Federer is certainly up there. And as we'll talk with John, what's been incredible about this golden age of men's tennis is that you have arguably the three greatest players of all time, all playing within the same era. With Federer, with Nadal, and with Djokovic, who's a little bit younger and will have more time to win more Grand Slams and potentially break all the records. But right now it's been there. But what it's been about Roger Federer for me is the person that he is. He really, the Queen passed away last week, and there's been a lot of talk about royalty and a period of mourning. Roger Federer wasn't just tennis royalty, but he was sports royalty. And he was one of the true gentlemen and greatest people in all of sports. So it's just a huge loss for the sporting world. But, thinking now that he's 41 years old and how much we've got a chance to see him play, it really is incredible that, how long he has lasted up until this point. So why not question of the day today and answer in the comments? Is Roger Federer the greatest male tennis player of all time? I won't say tennis player because, of course, Serena Williams on the other side is right up there with her 19 Grand Slams. But I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on that. And where does Roger Federer rank among the most iconic athletes of the last 50 years? To me, he's right up there with the Tiger Woodses of the world. So get that into the chat. And again, if you're watching afterwards, you can always answer the why not question of the day in the comments on the YouTube page. But we'll talk about that later on with John coming up in 20 or 25 minutes before we get back to the Jets with Rewucki. But Reem, before we hear from and speak about the YoungStars, some awesome feedback from yesterday's program on our why not question of the day, talking about a potential Jesse Puljujarvi trade. And, it was a great sports talk topic because you had very, very strong opinions and very hot takes on both sides. There was a number of people that said they would do a Jesse Puljujarvi for Logan Stanley or Logan Stanley and a lower round pick trade in a heartbeat. And then the Logan Stanley fan club entered the chat, and, they might not be as vocal, on social media all the time, but there's a lot of people that are big believers in the big defenseman and want no part of a trade of Logan Stanley, despite the logjam on the Jet blue line right now.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that it's pretty clear the Jets have too many NHL defensemen. They have a lack of depth at forward. They need to make a trade here. You go from the surplus and help where you have a deficit. But no matter what defenseman we give up, you say in a trade, there's going to be people out there that say, don't trade that guy. We've said trade Dylan. Oh, you can't trade Dylan. He's the only tough guy. Trade Stanley. You can't trade Stanley. He's going to be the people, he's 6'7" or whatever it is. You can't trade Hanel. Oh, no, he's a young prospect. Got to give him time. Trade, whoever. So, you're going to have people upset, but I think it's pretty clear. So you threw out trade Stanley and for Puljujarvi. I think it kind of fits with what the Oilers want to do, shed salary while also adding a defenseman. You throw in a pick as well, and it helps the Jets.
The Jets might not even have to do that. I just finished the lock shop, and I was hoping to have Dusty on the program today to kick this around, but he's got a flight out to Regina to call the game tomorrow. But I said to him off air, so I basically just reset it, and I'll reset it for anyone that missed the show yesterday.
Sorry, 1 sec. There.
Yeah, that was you? I was figuring. I thought I might have left something open. So Jesse Puljujarvi is reportedly available, and the Edmonton Oilers are looking to move him and doing it for a pick because they need some cap relief. Well, the Winnipeg Jets need a forward, or would certainly like to boost their forward group, I would imagine. And they've got this logjam on defense. Now, you're not able to make any of those trades for any of the veterans because it would be, I mean, even if it's a player like Dylan DeMello, it would be money in, money out for Edmonton, and that doesn't solve their problems. It just gives them more of a logjam on the blue line and doesn't change what their salary cap commitment is. But Puljujarvi is at $3 million, and he's an RFA with arbitration at the end of this season. Logan Stanley is on a $900,000 contract. So that trade would essentially add $2.1 million to the Jets cap and would save the Edmonton Oilers $2.1 million. Right now, from what I'm hearing, the Oilers will move Puljujarvi for a pick. I think that, certainly talking to Dusty, if they could get a second rounder, I think they would jump at that. I'd argue that the value of Logan Stanley is certainly more than a second rounder right now. I think there are people in the league that still believe that he can be a long-term regular in the National Hockey League, and that certainly has value, especially at less than $1 million. So I had posed this to Murat yesterday on the program, is that who says no? I said it to Dustin off air today, as I mentioned. He's very tied in with the Oilers. I said, okay, Puljujarvi to Winnipeg, $3 million out. Logan Stanley and maybe a supplementary lower round pick if need be. Do the Oilers, like, who says no? And he said, I don't think the Oilers say no to that. Now, again, they don't necessarily need Stanley, and he doesn't project to be right into that lineup. He'd probably be in the mix for, that third pairing or potentially in the press box. But it does save them on that salary cap number. And I was interested that he said that, Reem, because I kind of thought that maybe there would be a hesitancy to do it. And listen, Dusty's like maybe the biggest Puljujarvi backer in all of Northern Alberta. But the fact of the matter is the Oilers are in a predicament, much like the Jets are in a predicament. And the more I think about a trade like that, it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'll just go through some of the comments here. The Colt says hard pass on Puljujarvi. And then Mike L went kind of nuts on the comments. He says, Logan better stay. Get rid of Pionk. You guys are drunk. They need big defensemen. Mike L. And then we had...
There is the Jets need big defensemen lobby. That is always around in the comments when anyone mentions Logan Stanley on either side of things.
Yeah, there was one other guy who wrote in all capitals, but I couldn't see it there. I texted it to you.
Pavari. Yeah, Pavari. He was an angry member of the big
The guy deleted it, I think. I think he deleted it.
Oh, really?
No, here. Sorry, this is the one. In all capital. They should not trade...
Tico Napoli?
No, it's Chance Baker. They should not trade Stanley. They should bury the 3 old defensemen that suck in the minors. We don't need Pavari. We have 1 million young prospects on forward defense goalies. That is literally what you talked about all show Monday and Tuesday. That was in all capitals. This guy wrote that. So I don't know how seriously
he was yelling at us. He didn't
call us drunk. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, the show's too early for us to get into the bag before we do it at 1 p.m. every day. It's part of the great time about how Winnipeg Sports Talk works every day. But, I do want to listen. I think everyone knows. I mean, if you're a longtime listener of Winnipeg Sports Talk, you know that I'm not out on Logan Stanley by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't think he had a great season last year. But I was the first one that speculated that I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to protect Logan Stanley in the expansion draft, and that's exactly what they did. So when Murat had said yesterday he's not sure where the Jets would go for that, I mean, I do think that there is some truth to that because of what they put into him and the hopes for what he can be as an NHL defenseman. But you can only dress 6 guys. And right now, until they move one of those vets, Stanley, I mean, listen, at the end of the last season, if you're assuming those 5 guys, Dylan Sandberg was in the lineup ahead of both Stanley and Ville Heinola. And I think there'll be some healthy competition with all those guys, but at a certain point, you can't play everyone, and the Jets have needs up front. So it was maybe a bit of a creative idea as to how we could maybe make a deal that makes sense for both teams based on the needs right now. And it was interesting to hear all the feedback for it. Certainly, we got the why not question today on Roger Federer, but you can certainly add your comments and in the chat on what you think about, a potential acquisition of Puljujarvi, if he interests you at all, as well as what might make sense to go the other way. that could result in a deal that works for both teams. And, it's got to be salary savings for Edmonton. And from the Winnipeg side of things, I think you need to get a forward that can come in. And to me, a guy like Puljujarvi is a lot better than even a $4 or $5 million player trading for one of your veteran defensemen, Reem, because I think there's real potential that Jesse Puljujarvi can turn into, a valuable middle six forward for a good number of years beyond this upcoming season.
Yeah, and Brandon writes in chat, have the Jets been linked to Puljujarvi at all? And, any reporting, or is it just speculation? Seems like it's picking up. I mean, we haven't seen any insiders mention the Jets, but you would think that they would be.
The insiders have been at the lake for a month and a half. They haven't even been working.
It just makes sense. They need a forward. They've been on these depth forwards. Edmonton wants to give him away.
Yeah. Listen, just to be clear, I'm not talking about anyone else's report. This was entirely just a thought that I had after talking with Dusty the other day, after Ryan Rishaug was on saying and reporting that the Edmonton Oilers are still looking to move Jesse Puljujarvi, and they would do it for a draft pick. And I guess you could do that for a draft pick and you'd bring in. But I mean, whenever I think of trades that potentially make sense for the Winnipeg Jets, I'm always thinking about how you can add to the forward group and, at the same time, make a little bit more room for some of these young defensemen, i.e. Heinola and Dylan Sandberg, to get into the lineup. And listen, I know it's not their first choice to trade a Logan Stanley. I think they'd like to have him around and have him around for a long time. But at a certain point, the rubber's got to hit the road. There's going to be tough decisions to be made. And that was sort of where that idea came from. Interested in your comments. The chat's always open. And if you're watching us afterwards or you're listening to the podcast and you want to get in, hit us up on Twitter at Sports Talk WPG, or get to the YouTube page, subscribe to it, and then drop in the comments what you think about that potential trade. All that being said, that was a great topic yesterday that we got a lot of feedback from. But the interest was all at Iceplex yesterday as the Winnipeg Jets rookie camp got underway. And we did hear from a number of the Winnipeg Jets, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But the other big news today, Remo, that we've got to talk about was the announcement from True North Sports and Entertainment about the celebration of the unveiling of the Dale Hawerchuk statue. And it sure sounds like October 1st is going to be a special day in downtown Winnipeg. I'll be honest, it was sort of strange to hear that is happening all around an exhibition game, but everything that we've seen, True North is really putting a lot into this date as a special day to celebrate their season ticket holders. And I know as a season ticket holder, I'll certainly want to be there for that game far more than any normal preseason game, not only because of what they're doing in the rink, but also because of what's happening before, with a special ceremony before the game at 5:15, where the Dale Hawerchuk statue will be unveiled. And an incredible crew. I've got to give True North a lot of credit. I mean, they do these events very well. A real who's who of Dale Hawerchuk's life on and off the ice. Joining Dale Hawerchuk's wife, Crystal, will be addressing the crew. NHL Senior VP of Hockey Operations and former Winnipeg Jet, Chris King. His former Canada Cup teammate and fellow Hockey Hall of Fame member, Paul Coffey. Former Jets teammate, Dave Ellett. Former Jets teammate and now Jets associate coach, Scott Arneal. And, of course, Jet forward Mark Scheifele, who Hawerchuk was an influential coach and mentor. Many other Jets alumni will attend, including former teammates like Randy Carlyle, Serge Savard, Dave Babich, Paul McLean, Laurie Boschman, Lucien Deblois, Jim Kite, Tim Waters, Brian Mullen, Ray Neufeld, Jimmy Mann, Randy Gillen, Jordy Douglas, and there'll be a special flyby featuring 4 17-wing CT-155 Hawks, to cap off the unveiling ceremony. This is going to be a really, really special day for this organization. I would say this community, the hockey community, downtown Winnipeg. And I'm really looking forward to being a part of this and, being there in person to see a guy that thrilled so many of us in our younger years leave a lasting legacy that True North promised and is now delivering on the 1st of October.
This is really cool. We don't have any statues commemorating the past here. You go to other big sports cities and they do have that kind of stuff. I've been to you have Legends Row in Toronto. I've been to games in White Sox. They had some cool statues. I was in Seattle for a baseball game. They had Ken Griffey Jr. statue. And finally, there's going to be one here at True North Square. And, they said, the ceremony was going to be October 1st in a preseason game. And you're kind of like, a preseason? Why are they doing this? But it makes sense. It's going to be outside. They're going to have DJs there. Sounds like it's going to be a great ceremony. They say get there at 4:30, October 1st. It's a Saturday. Ceremony's at 5:15. You see the names that you just mentioned in this ceremony. I mean, this is first class event they're putting on, and you have the Saturday game after. So I'm really fired up to see what the statue looks like and see how the ceremony goes. I think this is pretty awesome for the franchise and Dale Hawerchuk as well. So nice to see him getting honored. And we've heard about this statue. I think they announced like a year ago.
Yeah.
Almost pretty much a year ago. So this is building for a while, and we know they do these sort of things. True North does these things the right way. We've seen previous jersey banner raisings, and bringing all these people in for this. You have the statue, and then next month or 2 months from now in November, the Newman and Solani honoring some big events here surrounding the Jets the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, I, like many of you, have not split up my season tickets with my buddies that we share the seats with. But I could actually envision a scenario where this exhibition game could actually be picked before maybe a couple regular season games that are at the end of the list. This is going to be very different than a normal preseason game, and I would imagine the Winnipeg Jets will be icing pretty much their best possible lineup, although maybe Scheifele's not in it if he's taking part in the ceremony beforehand. Just a couple more notes on this. Along with the unveiling of the statue, fans are invited to celebrate Dale Hawerchuk's life and legacy at True North Square and the surrounding area before and after the event. Honorary Dale Hawerchuk Way, which is Graham between Carleton and Donald, and Hargrave, north of St. Mary, south of Portage, will be closed from 4 to 8 p.m. to accommodate the ceremony. Live DJ and the Jets community team will remain on site between 6 and 7, as fans are able to get a closer look at the statue and enter Canada Life Center for the Jets Oilers 7 p.m. puck drop. So all the information's there at winnipegjets.com. And if you were planning on getting seats for the upcoming season or for this particular game, I would suggest to do it. I believe every fan at that game will also get a commemorative Dale Hawerchuk coin. And I know those will be in high demand, especially for fans of the 1.0 era. So there's your 411 on the Hawerchuk statue. And I think as we get closer to that event, we'll look to hook up with Scott Brown or somebody from True North to maybe talk more about everything that's happening in and around that time. But right now, our focus is on the YoungStars, and we're going to hear from them in just a minute. But I'll tell you what, before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Consolidated Supply, our newest sponsors and the best sort of sponsors, WST guys and girl gang just like us. I know Joe and Spicy, longtime listeners, and Chris Buechler, Buck, a longtime friend of mine. Great to see what they're doing, which has been growing Consolidated Supply here in Winnipeg and throughout Western Canada. They are the irrigation leaders. If you're looking to get your lawn green and lush with irrigation, they can help you with DIY irrigation solutions. Or if you're out at the cabin and unsure if the lawn was watered, our buddy Joe has Wi-Fi enabled controllers to check in on your cell phone. And if you've got artificial turf needs, looking for grass that'll withstand your pet's waste or won't grow in a shaded area, Consolidated Supply has artificial grass solutions for you, and Joe can help you out with that as well. And in addition, they've been a huge part of the golf industry for a long time, not only with the grass, but also with carts. If you need a new or used golf cart tricked out, Gino will be there for you at Consolidated Supply. They are all things club car as Manitoba's dealer. And they've got golf carts and bigger ones too for, business and warehouse needs. 2, 4, 6-seaters, everything there. And listen, if you're working on something for the backyard, you want to get that incredible artificial turf putting green in, or an outdoor kitchen, hot tub, they've got it all as well. Consolidated Supply, CTE.ca, or pop down and see them. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you at 1395 Niagara Road East. Our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market are busy heading into the fall, as they are stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products, all at great prices, with an amazing, knowledgeable staff trained in these products to help you get exactly what you need. If you're into organic produce, local grass-fed meats, they've got you covered. Not to mention a great grab-and-go deli with healthy and delicious Vita Market salads, sandwiches, ready for you on the go. Empowering Manitobans for 85 years to lead healthy lives, with 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. And check them out online at their fully shoppable website online at myvita.ca. I know we've had some great feedback on for Wallace & Wallace. Well, they did a very good number on Michael Remis's garage, as well as some of our customers. We always think of Wallace & Wallace as the fencing experts. Well, because they are. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city, but you might not know that they are a big dealer of Clopay, the largest garage door manufacturer in the world. And despite supply chain issues, Wallace & Wallace can get your door delivered and installed in less than 4 weeks right now. And with 161 styles of garage doors to choose from, there's a style that's right for your home. And a new garage door can add up to 4% of the value of your home. Visit them at wallacedoors.com, give them a call, or check out more on their showroom in person down on Lawson Road. And a big cheers on a great season to our friends at Aikens Lake. Just saw the pictures of Cole Perfetti and Connor Hellebuck up for the True North Foundation trip. Caught some beauty fish. And as great as the fishing, the hospitality and the people are even better. Find out more about availability for next year at aikenslake.com. All right, Remo. So we've got some audio to hear from young Winnipeg Jets. Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert spoke yesterday.
Yes, first scrums of the season. Huss, very exciting to finally have some questions being asked, some players we get to hear from them. What are they up to this summer? And they came and spoke, and now just gets us even more excited for these games. Friday, the first one, Friday, 6 p.m. From Penticton. So they'll be and we did have the line rushes yesterday, too. Everyone was feverishly, got to tweet out the YoungStars line rushes. We got to know who's going to play with who.
Well, the thing that I was interested in is where were Lucius and Lambert, and sure enough, they were playing together. And we expect Cole Perfetti to be on the squad at the beginning of the season. Not so much for Lucius and Lambert, but let's hear what they have to say about their plans going forward. I mean, I think outside of maybe Blake Wheeler and Pierre-Luc Dubois and a couple of the Winnipeg Jets, hearing from the new members of the organization was intriguing as just about anything we'll get in the first little while. There are the pairings, as we mentioned, Perfetti with Greg Morellis and Daniel Torgerson, and Lucius and Lambert along with Bon Giovanni on that 2-line, Zhilkin and Niikanen, the other centers in the group. But let's start off with Chaz Lucius, the first rounder, 18th overall from last year, 2021. And Lucius here signed his contract, was asked about the opportunity here with the Winnipeg Jets turning pro.
Yeah, I had the ankle surgery, so I wasn't able to play. I think that took me out maybe middle of February, so I'm really looking forward to, playing, getting some games under my belt before camp.
Obviously, the World Juniors in August weren't on the menu. Was that a conversation that you had with the Jets kind of leading up to that about what was best?
Yeah, it definitely was, and I mean at that time I'd say my ankle still needed some time to recover and heal. So it wasn't a sense of playing or not playing. It was just it wasn't possible to play at that time with my ankle.
Will it be important though to get these reps now heading into main camp next week for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, these 3 games are going to be really big. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't played since February, so I'm really excited for the opportunity.
All right, so there's a little bit of former Jets first rounder Chaz Lucius. I guess in his first official media duties outside of when, of course, he was drafted. Now, there is some question as to where Chaz Lucius will play. I mean, I think we know where he'd like to play. But there's also junior options and, of course, the Manitoba Moose. Here's Lucius on where he might end up playing and what his intentions are.
I'd say like no time at all, really. I think the skill set, those things will.
Sorry, he was asked if he thinks about where he might play. I didn't
Okay, gotcha.
The right note there.
Kind of tell the story and how I'm ready for camp and how I'm prepared to go into things. So, and I think again it goes back to the mindset of just coming in one day at a time and mentally just being present in the moment.
I think I probably know the answer to this, but do you feel like you could make the Jets this year?
Yeah, I mean I'm really hopeful and I'm going to give it my best shot. And I mean I'd say anybody in my position would try to say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you want to have that confidence, certainly outwardly. That is by no means, I'll see you on opening night, Jets fans, but Chaz Lucius, for obvious reasons. I mean, he's been very successful at every level that he has been, had those injuries last year, and now looking to get back on the ice. First and foremost, be healthy, have a nice full season, and help this organization continue to grow to the NHL. As to how soon that happens, I guess we will see. There's more kind of fun just finding out more about these players, and Lucius also spoke on a little bit more about him and what he's into when he's not on the ice in his free time.
I think the biggest thing, first, both my injuries, I wasn't able to walk, so that's a little difficult, right? So, I mean, like, again, reading is a big thing. I'd say just talking to friends and family, too, just communicating is a big thing. And also, like, maybe sometimes going on YouTube, some motivational videos or different things like that are really important. I feel like it kind of sets the tone for my mindset, or also just, like, resting, recovering, and trying to just to maybe meditate sometimes. I kind of pick that up a little bit.
Are you willing to share a top read or YouTube speaker that you got into?
Yeah, reading, I'd say Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, definitely my favorite book. And then YouTube in general, I just a lot of motivational videos. I don't have one person in particular, but I mean, David Goggins is on YouTube a lot, so he always pops up, so try to watch him a little bit.
All right, our kind of guy, Reem. YouTube. Well, we may need to do some motivational speeches on this program for Chaz going forward. We'll make sure he subs to the channel like you all should. Hit that red button and join us every day at 1 o'clock. And we can be a part of the motivation of the next generation of Winnipeg Jets here on the show.
You know, he said he was into YouTube, and I start wondering, this is what I think about now. I'm like, do you think Winnipeg Sports Talk comes up in his recommendations? Like, is he, if he's YouTubing like Winnipeg Jets highlights, trying to like get a scouting report on the team or something, I mean, we're going to show up in there, and maybe he would hit the like and subscribe. You need to do a
thumbnail like, can you believe this take on Chaz Lucius? Yeah. Or something like that. We'll get the click-throughs for sure. Listen, though, it was neat to see him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he looks like in these games coming up this weekend. Now, the other guy he was playing with, and the other first rounder that I think has a lot of intrigue going into this tournament, is the Finn that sounds like a Canadian, Brad Lambert, who was the Jets' second first rounder in this past summer's draft. Lambert does not have a contract next year in Europe, so could play in the Western League, could play with the Manitoba Moose, and obviously, if things go his way, could play in the National Hockey League. So Brad Lambert first was asked about where he's at right now and how good it feels to be here with his new team and organization and out on the ice yesterday with his teammates.
Yeah, it felt really good, get back at it, and it's a great group of guys. I already got to meet them all, so I think we get along really well. It's a bunch of good guys, so it's great to be here.
What do you got going on in terms of team building? Part of it will be obviously brand new, a few minutes old line combinations, but you got some other bonding opportunities as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us are staying at the Hyatt Hotel, so just spending time when we're not at the rink, spending time together, doing different kinds of activities. It's got to meet some guys and got to meet some guys a little later, so know a few of them closer already, and looking forward to getting to know everyone. Everyone really close, and everyone seems like it's going to be a close group of guys.
All right, so there is Brad Lambert meeting the media for the first time since coming to Winnipeg. Lots of talk about Lambert, obviously, at the World Juniors, where wasn't on the ice for the last couple of games. He had that great start at Christmas with 5 points in the first 2 games before the tournament was canceled. While it went well for his Finnish team, individually it did not go that well back in August. And not surprisingly, Lambert was asked about the World Juniors, that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good experience. Obviously, our team did really good. for me it was a bit of a tough tournament, but great to get the silver medal. Obviously disappointing there at the end. I was so close to the gold medal, but it was still really proud of all the guys.
Yeah, that Mason McTavish puck. Have you gone back and watched that, or is it almost too painful to go look at that?
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times. It's pretty. That's not going to happen many times out of 10. So it's really upsetting.
Just as an aside, I'm glad Mike brought that up. Rewa, can you imagine losing a gold medal that way? I mean, probably it didn't hurt quite as much because he wasn't on the ice or with the team in that game, but you're still part of a team. You want to do well. And that we might go through the rest of our entire lives and not find a more unlikely way a sure win was taken away than the play that Mason McTavish made, which was a 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 in front of the net before Canada came back to win that game.
Yeah, the puck looks like it's going in. McTavish forward. It's almost like the Jeter, flip. Like you couldn't believe that he's there to nail down Jeremy Giambi. But look, that's a nothing play for. I know these hockey players. They've got such good hand-eye. So I'm not surprised. I don't really get surprised anymore when guys knock down pucks in the air. It's amazing he was even standing there though. It
was a shot going into a wide open net. I mean, that does not happen ever. I mean, even though, they do, and there's a lot of guys that are good with tips. I mean, the fact that he got as much on the puck as well to get through. Anyways, we won't need to relitigate that, but I still cannot believe that happened. Here's a little bit more from Brad Lambert, though. I just asked, how he's feeling and where he's at getting into Winnipeg going into this next chapter of his pro career.
Felt pretty good as soon as I stepped on the ice here in Winnipeg. Obviously, I hadn't been on the ice for a week, but still felt pretty good. Felt like I'm in pretty good shape, and got the skating test out of the way too. So it's all good.
You mentioned that Edmonton went well for the team, but maybe not as well for you as you would have liked. So from that perspective, do you have something to prove to yourself in Penticton this week?
I don't know. I'm just gonna go play my game. Different kind of opportunity. I had a different kind of opportunity this Christmas at the World Junior, and I was playing a bit of a different role this summer. And I think I played pretty well in the role I played in this summer. It obviously wasn't a too offensive role, but I think I got pucks deep and grinded it out like my coach wanted to, and I think I did that pretty well. So now hopefully playing a more offensive role here and get things going. Can't wait.
He's got a fascinating accent, because it is mostly Finnish, but you do hear some of the Canadian and North American in it as well. It'd be interesting to compare that maybe to what he sounds like in a couple years after playing in the National Hockey League. That being said, there is one more clip from Lambert, and I think that's what everyone's interested in is where he's going to play this year. Lambert was asked if he thinks about where he might end up playing this season.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm just taking it a day at a time, trying to have as good of a camp as I can possibly have, and prove how I can play, show them how I can play, and after that, it's more in their hands, where they want to put me, where they think the best spot for me is to play, and I'm not too worried about that. I just love going out there and playing hockey wherever it is. We'll see where it is. I'm just gonna obviously do my best in this camp and training camp too. Try to earn a spot, but we'll see what happens.
All right, so there is Jets first rounder Brad Lambert meeting the media yesterday before the YoungStars head out to Penticton to play 3 games over the course of the weekend, beginning on Friday. Again, links for the games, which will be broadcast by the Jets, all in the description of this video for each day if you want to get that set up. Now, Mark Morrison, Moose head coach, is going to be behind the bench. He's been running the practices as well. And Morrison spoke yesterday, and he talked about what he saw from Brad Lambert, as well as his message to everyone, all of the young players in the organization that are making the trip to Penticton.
To me, I don't know anything about that past area where he's taken a step back. I don't see that, but to me, he looked like he had a lot of pace in practice. He looked fast. He did look like he's highly skilled. He's going to get a lot of ice time and put in a lot of positions to succeed in power play, and we'll see where he goes.
Is the message the same for everybody? Like, you got a group here, you got first-round draft picks, you got seventh-round draft picks, you got free agents who are just here on invites, like a real eclectic mix. Is the message the same to all these guys, no matter where they were taken?
Yeah, 100% it is. All those guys, this is an opportunity for them to show. You know, they get a chance to see what they've got. But the biggest thing that we want to make sure we do as a group here is compete. So we want to be the hardest competing group. Everybody on this team wants to compete hard and show everybody what they've got. So that's our message to them. Be the team that competes the hardest, and if they all do that, then they'll get a look.
So there's Moose head coach Mark Morrison on the trip going out to Penticton. Fellas flying out there today. I believe they'll skate there as well. And then first game tomorrow. And of course, we'll be talking about it throughout the next few shows here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And looking forward to chopping it up with Brandon Rewucki on the program in a few minutes here on WST. All right. Just before we get to John Horn on Roger Federer, again, why not question of the day is about the great Roger Federer, who announced his retirement today. In the comments, is Roger Federer the greatest men's tennis player of all time? Yes or no? If no, who is it? I say yes. We'll find out what John has to say in a minute. But of course, our friends at Knott Auto Corp are great sponsors of ours, been with us since day one, and the place where you'll want to start any search for a new vehicle here in Winnipeg. If you're thinking about maybe an upgrade of your current ride, or your family has new needs, Knott Auto Corp is the spot for the best deals on incredible variety of vehicles. And if the kind of car you're looking for isn't there, the experts at Knott will help you source it, find it, and get it here to Winnipeg at the best possible price. They've also got an amazing selections of Tesla vehicles, as they've been the Tesla leader in Manitoba for a number of years. Pop down, see Sean, Andre, and the rest of the gang at Knott Auto Corp. Why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Knott team? Go down and see him at Waverly and McGillivray. Tell them WST sent you, or you can check them out online, as well as the Winnipeg Car Lab at knott.ca. Well, big game tonight. I've got my Chiefs hoodie on. I'll get a new lid on tonight. And if you need a little gear for your favorite NFL team, new merch coming in daily at Royal Sports. Of course, tons of Bomber gear as well, including exclusive back-to-back championship hats. Hopefully, we'll have some three-peat hats available at Royal Sports in a few months. Fingers crossed. And, of course, Jets gear and merchandise from everywhere in the world of sports. But it's not just the best selection of merchandise. They're also the hockey superstore. Hockey players know hockey players work there, and hockey players will help you get the best choice to make the most of your upcoming season for anyone in your family. Royal Sports, Winnipeg's hockey superstar for over 35 years, 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, you can follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Well, we got a chance to see the young men in their uniforms yesterday. We'll probably, as we get into the season, get a lot of chance to see quite a few nice suits on the players. And I imagine most of those suits probably custom from F Apparel. Remo and I got our new suits. We will do a suit show maybe in and around the start of the season. We'll set a milestone for all you and we can hit it, and then we'll have some more fun with it. But I can tell you, going down, seeing Andrew and his great staff at F Apparel was an absolute breeze. Roll out all the different options for the suits, the different fabrics, colors, and more. Get you sized up, and then a few weeks later, you got an amazing new suit at a great price. Custom suits starting at just $400. Every guy needs at least one suit that fits and looks great. F is there for you. And by the way, guys, if you're planning a wedding for next summer, talk to the staff at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more. Make an appointment online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. Fortinet Championship in the PGA Tour. Can you believe it's a brand new PGA Tour season? And then next week, it is the President's Cup. Few Canadians in the field this weekend, including Taylor Pendrith, who will also be on the international team at the President's Cup. And We'll be following golf 12 months a year, and when we do it, it's for our friends at Breezy Bend. If you're looking for an amazing course for you and your family to enjoy many years playing together and with friends, Breezy Bend is the spot, one of Winnipeg's top private courses. Find out about the waiting list for next season by calling our friend Corey Johnson down at the clubhouse, or find out more online at breezybend.ca. All right, back to the Jets in a minute with Brandon Rewucki, but with the retirement of Roger Federer, we had to grab John Horn for a few minutes to talk about an absolute living legend calling it a career. Thanks so much for doing this. I guess first off, how much of a surprise was this amongst people like you that cover tennis so closely? Was this bound to happen, or did this catch some people off guard?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know if it caught people off guard in terms of, I mean, we knew this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen. Were we surprised that it happened today? I think today, caught me off guard for sure. I know he was supposed to be playing the Labour Cup, and he is still going to be playing the Labour Cup next week in London, which will be his last official event. But many people thought that he was going to play the rest of the year. He was going to play in Basel, which is his home country in Switzerland. Thought that if there was an opportunity where he may retire, then that may be the event that he would retire, being at home. And then many thought maybe he was going to play another year, another 2 years. But really, I guess what's been happening is that his knee injury that he's been trying to recover from has just not been going as smoothly as he thought. I mean, he is 41 years old. It's definitely not easy to recover at 41 compared to when you were 21 or when you were 35 or when he had his last knee injury where he came back and ended up winning the Australian Open, which is still is remarkable that he was able to do that. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it caught a lot of people off guard today, it seems like, maybe some people had an indication this was happening. I mean, when you look at all the messages that have gone out there through the tours, through certain players, it's almost as if, how could you write something like this or put a video together like this if you didn't know this was coming? A little surprised that it happened the fact that it happened now. It does give an opportunity now for a big send-off at the Labour Cup in London. And maybe fitting that London is his place that he does end up playing his last match, considering he had so much success at Wimbledon. He's beloved there. If there is a place to go out, this is probably the place other than in Switzerland for him to do so.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about royalty, of course, with the passing of the Queen and being mourned in Great Britain. And tennis has lost, arguably the great royalty on both sides. Serena Williams, the greatest women's player of all time, and Roger Federer, who is certainly in the conversation for the best ever on the men's side. We'll get to that in a minute, but the legacy of Federer to me is so much more than what he did on the court. And we're seeing that by the reaction from people outside of tennis around the sports world. I mean, this guy is an icon of tennis, but also for sportsmanship, for gentlemen. I mean, he is, he epitomizes so many of the great things that we love about sports.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's won the Sportsmanship Award on the men's tour for multiple years in a row. There's a reason why he's done so. He's very gracious on the court and off the court. He's always had that reputation as being a really outstanding athlete in terms of with the fans, in terms of media, in terms of his peers, very respectful. And you're right. Like, I mean, he is a sports icon. I mean, when you look at the other sports of the world and where these other athletes in different sports have gone, what kind of pedestals they're on. I mean, there are a number of athletes out there. You think of Muhammad Ali, you think of Pele, you think of Tiger Woods. Those are just a few. Cristiano Ronaldo. There's so many different athletes in so many different sports who are icons in their sport. But I really put Roger Federer really at the top of the list in terms of worldwide. You go anywhere in the world, whether it's in India, Antarctica, South Africa, Spain, Canada, wherever, everyone knows who Roger Federer is. Everyone respects what Roger Federer has done on the tennis court. And there's just something about him. It's something about his demeanor. It's his style on the court. It's the way that he hits the tennis ball. It's his look. It's his... Everything about him just sort of shows class and sportsmanship. And it's really been a privilege to, at the age that we are, to watch such an athlete have so much success and the way he's been able to do it. I mean, there'll be no other Roger Federer in everything that he's done. I mean, we think of all the money he's won, you think of the slams and the tournaments and everything that he's done. but it's just the way he carries himself on and off the court, which, I will always remember. And I'll always remember one thing that Roger Federer said during a press conference or an interview that I was at. And I thought it was really interesting that, the amount of people who try to clamor for his autograph to try and get a picture with him, selfies, whatever. He said that, I will always go to other people who admire the sport, whether it's fans or coaches or media people or whatever. If somebody ever asks me for an autograph, I'm going to sign my full name, Roger Federer, on that autograph. I'm not just going to scribble RF, which he could easily do, or scribble something down like a lot of players do, because you see it at the end of tennis matches where players are signing like hundreds of stuff, and it's like Nick Kyrgios will just put NK, or Djokovic will put a little scribble. Federer always said that every time somebody asks me for an autograph, I'm going to take the time and put my full signature on there so they can see my name, because they took the time to want to get my autograph. I'm going to take the time to give them the time. So I thought that is something that always sticks with me and is something that's very cool.
Well, and honestly, it's something that we don't see very often, especially today in this era. And it's another reason of why he stood out amongst his peers for so long. And with Roger calling it quits, Nadal certainly finishing up the back nine of his career, and Serena retiring at the U.S. Open. I mean, growing up, tennis was always a relatively young person's game. I mean, the top men's players would get to 30, and then they were not as competitive anymore. That's all changed basically during this era, thanks to those three players specifically. But where does tennis go from here? I mean, if you remove those, and we expect Nadal to stop at some point soon, this really could be maybe the most significant turnover amongst the star power, I'd argue, maybe in the history of the sport.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely a different era. There's no doubt about it. We're starting to see that. I mean, we saw the final at the U.S. Open on the men's side with Ruud and Alcaraz sort of being the next coming. And I think if they play the way, especially Alcaraz, if he continues to play the way that he's been playing, I mean, I think men's tennis is going to be in a good place. I think women's tennis is in a good place as well. A lot of good young stars. Lots of competition. Swiatek is obviously the top of the sport in the women's side right now. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a sad time for people who've been watching, maybe people who are in their 30s and 40s who've been watching these athletes for 20 years, and then suddenly they're disappearing now. Yeah, you're right. I mean, to have Federer and Serena, who, were born only a month and a bit apart, retiring, 12, 13 days apart, from each other, it's an era that's going to be gone. And I mean, we think of all that they've done for the sport on the women's side and on the men's side, all the tournaments, all the Grand Slams, all the records, the prize money, the everything. It's hard to talk about tennis these days without mentioning Serena Williams and Roger Federer. And now suddenly we're not going to be able to do that anymore. You're right. Nadal, I think, is on the back end of his career. I mean, he still says that he wants to keep playing, and it's going to be up to the injuries, I think, and the recovery and how long that goes. I think Novak Djokovic has got a few years left in him still. So, there's still a lot, and there are a ton of good young players on the tour who have the potential to do a lot of things, including our Canadians, Denis Shapovalov, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Leylah Fernandez, Bianca Andreescu on the women's side. I mean, those are just some of the players. I mean, you think of Tsitsipas, Sabalenka. I mean, there's a ton of really strong, good young players on both sides. So I think the game is still in a good spot, but it's just going to be a little different not having the icons there. And how are we going to get casual tennis fans or non-tennis fans to watch the sport without these players? Because I mean, they've done so much for the sport, and everyone knows their name. Even if you're not even a big tennis fan, you know who Federer is, you know who Serena is. So it's going to be strange.
John Horn with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, breaking down the retirement announcement of Roger Federer. John, before we go, this is Sports Talk. Everyone wants to talk about who's the best, who is the GOAT. Listen, I mean, Novak's obviously got a lot more time to play, and with what he's done so far, he might win more Grand Slams. I don't think he'll ever be able to match up to Roger in many of the other categories, but I mean, you're the best person to ask this, and so I want to ask you, who's the best male tennis player of all time? Is it Roger Federer, or is it somebody else?
I mean, it's a tough question. It's like any sport where you're asking who the best hockey player is of all time. It's different eras, different generations. Is Gretzky better than Orr? Was Lemieux better than Gretzky? Is Crosby better than both? I mean, it's so hard to juggle different eras and different athletes and what they brought to the sport. I mean, if you were to look at the three players who have been competing against each other in this era of Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal, for me, it's such a tough call. I mean, I would say that Federer for me is the greatest of all time, just because he's done so much on so many different surfaces around the world. Nadal, as much as, I mean, he leads the Grand Slam title race with 22, 14 of those have come on the French, and not to take that away from him, but 14 of the 22 have come on one surface. And Djokovic is really an unfinished project because he's still going to be going on. And I personally, I think that Djokovic is going to take down all the records because he's still younger than the other two, and he's got more tennis in him. So it's hard to call Djokovic the greatest of all time at this point, but I think eventually he will be the greatest of all time when it comes down to records. But then you also have to look at it from the perspective of, is the greatest of all time, are we talking about on the tennis court, or are we talking about an entire package? Are we talking about what the player does off the court, how he is with the fans, how he is with the media, what has he done in terms of charity, what has he done? I mean, all these guys have great charities, and they've raised a ton of money for all kinds of different foundations. So that's kind of a wash. Every player has if the Serbian players all love Djokovic, he's beloved in Australia. Nadal is beloved in Spain. They love him in France, obviously, because of he's got followers all over the world. But when you look at Federer, I just think when you look at the accomplishments, he's second in career titles. He's third in Grand Slams. He's got a ton of money. He's done a lot of good stuff around the sport. Wherever you go to watch Roger Federer play, he packs the house. I don't know if Djokovic does that. Nadal certainly is very close to packing the house almost all the time, but Federer, no matter what, he could be playing like a world number 1,000 in the world, and the place would be packed. People always wanted to watch Federer play, and I think it was just the way that he plays, the way he carries himself on court, really sort of puts that with all the other numbers, all the records and the wins and titles and everything in one package. So that's why I give it to Federer, because it's just the entire package of what he brings to the sport and what he's done for the sport, compared to, say, what Nadal and Djokovic have done. Nadal very close behind, I got to say. And we're only talking about this era. We're not talking about, what about Bjorn Borg? What about Rod Laver? What about John McEnroe? There's a lot of Pete Sampras. Where do all these players fit into the category? But it's a remarkable era, which we're probably never going to see again, where, probably will go down as the three greatest tennis players on the men's side of all time, all played in the same era against each other. And that's very strange. It's usually, even on the women's side, one player, Steffi Graf, or another player, Martina Navratilova, they crossed over a little bit, but they didn't play in the same era all at the same time regularly. So it's very unique. But for me, I've got Federer in the GOAT category, just personally.
Well, I'll say this, he's transcended the sport and is going to be missed in so many ways, but what an incredible career, and how lucky have we been to watch Roger Federer do what he's done for all these years. John, thanks so much for doing this. Be well, and enjoy the Laver Cup and everything we've got of Roger before it's over.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff with John Horn. Again, why not question today in the comments, thoughts on Roger Federer's retirement and his place in the pantheon of men's tennis, and frankly, into the greatest athletes over the course of this generation. All right, Rewucki is on deck. We're going to bring him on right away. We will talk some Bombers with Moe Khan later on. Don't forget, Bombers and Riders, a week Friday. Princess Auto Tailgate gets going 2 hours before game time. $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs and pop. It was an absolute zoo. What a scene before the Banjo Bowl. Hopefully it stays that way throughout the rest of the season. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and your boys here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And of course, you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Culligan Water have been with us really since right around we began this, and what a great partner they've been. And much like their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, they have been the go-to people for over 65 years in the water game here in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Culligan has everything you and your family or your business need: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, and drinking water systems, not to mention citywide water delivery services and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Visit Culligan Water in person at 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can give them a call at 694-5180 or find out all their products and services at drinkculligan.com. Our friends at Canadian Club, speaking of that Princess Auto tailgate zone and Bomber games, those CC and Gingers were well represented in the stands at the Banjo Bowl on the weekend, as was the Great Taste of Canadian Club as the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You can get Canadian Club and the CC and Ginger ready to drink premixed cocktail throughout IG Field. But you can also grab CC and Ginger now in 6-packs at your local beer store as well, in addition to Manitoba Liquor Marts, along with all the amazing products, including Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. And, hey, big game tonight. Chargers, Chiefs. Going to see what Brendan Rewucki thinks about that one as well. But don't forget, Boston Pizza is the place to watch every NFL game on the big screens. You got delicious BP flights and ice-cold Bud Draft on special for $5 every game. And you can enter to win one of 2 grand prize trips for 2 to an NFL weekend in Vegas, including hotel, airfare, NFL game tickets, and a bonus NHL game. First trip is November 11th to 13th for Raiders Colts and Golden Knights versus Blues on Saturday. Second trip, New Year's Eve weekend, Raiders Niners, plus the Knights and Predators on New Year's Eve. Watch the NFL and enter to win at any Winnipeg, Selkirk, Steinbach, Morden, and Portage Boston Pizza location. All right, let's get Rewucki in here to chop it up. Brandon, great to have you back in the program as always. Looking like $1 million US tax-free. What's up? How are you doing? Or were you as excited as everyone else to see line rushes of rookie camp? It's been a while since we had tweets like that.
Yeah, what? I mean, Brad Lambert on the second line. Are you freaking kidding me? What are we doing here? Yeah, I mean, like we're getting closer to it, so I mean that's good. But I'm more. It's funny. I'm still more excited for the media availability on day one of training camp than whatever the line combinations might be. It is nice. Like we're finally like a week away now. It's getting here. It's cold as hell outside too. It's getting a little bit closer here, and I'm excited about some actual storylines instead of trying to fabricate the same thing over the last 2 months.
Yeah, we got football weather. I can wait on the hockey weather for a little bit. That being said, though, going into this prospects tournament in Penticton, more sort of star power, more intrigue, more high draft picks on this club than we've had in a long time. And I don't think it's surprising at all that Cole Perfetti's going. I think he needs the reps, some game action. But, we heard from Chaz Lucius as well as Brad Lambert before. They were playing together on that second line that you talked about in the line rushes. Very interested to see how those players look like against their peers. And then, obviously, next week when we get to main camp and they get to mix it up with the real-life NHLers.
Yeah, those are honestly the only 2 I'm kind of interested in seeing, mainly just because Cole Perfetti has nothing to prove playing against his peers, right? Like he's shown he's an NHL guy right now. It's going to be how he does against the best of the best in the NHL, not people that are around his age group, which he's shown that he's kind of, reached a step above that. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if Perfetti, struggled in terms of production here, just because there's not really a lot for him to gain other than just getting some game speed reps in. But I'm very intrigued. I'm more intrigued by Lambert than I am Chaz Lucius. I mean, Lucius is, no matter what he does, pretty much destined to spend the full season with the Moose, which would be great for him. And hopefully he can get in, a full slate of games and avoid the injury bug for the Moose this year. But I don't know, man. There's something about when I've watched Brad Lambert in the past that I think it would have been a fine pick for the Jets at 12 or 13 or wherever it was with their initial pick, and for them to get him at number 30, I know there's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for him these past couple of months, the last year or so, but I think he's a special player, and I'm really, really excited to see what he looks like at training camp. I think he's not going to make the team or anything like that. I think he's one of those players that when you put him up a level, you can see his game reach that same level and he can take another step. I wonder motivation-wise if he's ever going to be a really impactful player in junior, which again is an odd thing to say, but I think that I don't know. I'm going out on a limb, and I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be the story of Winnipeg Jets training camp, and that he's going to come in there and he's going to look the part. He's going to be one of the best skaters outside of Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor at Jets camp. And I really think that the club got a home run pick at the late of the first round there.
Oh, Brandon coming in with the Kofi Kingston New Day power of positivity. I'm buying what you're selling right now, or certainly I'm here for it. I'm excited. Well, let me ask you about that, because last year was the year that he did struggle. His draft stock plummeted playing with men in the Finnish league. And that to me makes it so interesting as to how the Jets as an organization go over the course of the next few weeks with where he ends up. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that going to play in junior, with a good team like Seattle, playing a prominent role, playing big minutes, and hopefully really dominating that league could be good for his development and definitely good for his confidence. But it sounds like you're kind of thinking that he might be ready for certainly the American Hockey League. And there is part of me that would love to see those 2 first-rounders, Lucius and Lambert, who might be playing together in Penticton, to sort of cut their teeth together as professionals, playing together, maybe leaning on each other, hopefully starting a real good relationship that could last long into a hopefully long career with the big club.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him. The Jets have a ton more information on this than any of us do. If they think it's best to send him to junior, then it probably is. I think he's ready for the AHL. I'd like to see him play there for the full year. I think that would be best for him. We'll see though. But I call it a funny feeling or whatever it is. I think he's going to be fun to watch at training camp. It's very rare for a player of his size to skate the way that he does. It's not just it's rare for a junior. It's rare for NHLers at that size to skate as well as he does. And he's got a great shot, a ton of skill. He just hasn't put it all together yet. But I think once he does, we're going to look back on this draft here, and I think a few years down the road, Jets fans across the NHL are going to say, well, how the hell was Brad Lambert not a top 10 pick that year? Because he's going to turn out to be a pretty impactful NHLer. And honestly, it's probably, you talked about positivity. That's probably the most optimism I can give around the Jets right now, is that, their recent draft class was a pretty big A to A plus for me. And Brad Lambert was probably the crown jewel of the entire class.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we won't know about Rucker McGroarty until he, turns pro, and that it would be at the earliest next year, because, of course, he's enrolled at the University of Michigan. But both Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert are here. They'll be in Penticton, and we'll be talking about them after the weekend as to how they did and paying close attention to what they can do in main camp with the rest of the Winnipeg Jets. Brandon Rewucki's with us. He's the host of Skates and Plates. Make sure to download and subscribe wherever you get your Winnipeg Sports Talk podcasts for more great Jets content from Brandon. Brandon, I want to ask you about something that I brought up with Murat yesterday. Listen, we don't need to go back into the fact that the Winnipeg Jets still have this big logjam on defense. They certainly have needs at forward, and I think it's quite clear that, maybe a transition or a trade, moving a defense and bringing in a forward would make some sense. Jesse Puljujarvi. Before I even hit you with mine, what are your thoughts on Puljujarvi? I mean, is he a player that interests you? He's got $3 million owing him this year. He's an RFA at the end of the year, and it sounds like he's very much available by the Edmonton Oilers for a team that needs to drop a little bit of salary, and that's the one thing that Winnipeg Jets do have right now, is a little bit of room to add a player. What are your thoughts just on Puljujarvi before we talk about what the cost would be to get him?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting conversation, because you have, especially out there at Edmonton, two different viewpoints on this. And one side looks at what he does out there on the ice, and the other side looks at what he doesn't do on the ice relative to his draft position. And that changes the way you look at him. But if you just remove that he was the 3rd overall pick a few years back, and you just say, look, this is a player in the NHL, this is what he has to offer. 4th overall pick, sorry. He's a guy that does all the dirty work. He's not going to run you over physically, but he's going to be physical. And he's shown a pretty good aptitude of driving play and doing so from the winger spot, which is pretty rare, but also elevating the lines that he plays on. And while he's doing all that, he will miss out on 95% of his scoring chances. That's kind of the give and take with Puljujarvi. He just hasn't shown a bit of a finishing touch, but he does so many other things well that I think he's still a pretty impactful player. He's never going to be. I know people are making the comparisons to Val Nichushkin. I don't really envision a scenario where he reaches that ceiling. But to me, there's no reason he can't be very good to elite third line winger, or a super strong complementary piece on a team's second line, or even on a first line, like for the Jets, for example. If you have Scheifele, Ehlers, and Puljujarvi, or Dubois, Connor, Puljujarvi there, I think he's a guy that can help a team's top six. I think he's a guy that could take your third line if it's good and turn it into something that's extraordinary. But I don't think he's going to be an 80 to 90 point player anytime soon. Maybe even a 60 point player. But if you're wanting to have a guy on your team that can chip in 40-ish points and do a lot of the little things right, then he's going to be a great player for you. And I think all of Jets Nation would agree. Hey, 40 points and he plays on your second or third line. Yeah, we need about 2 to 3 of those guys. So sign me up for a Puljujarvi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that apparently at the asking price that he's still there in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that there is. I mean, from what we hear about it, the Oilers are willing to take, sort of a non-first rounder.
Like a mid-round pick.
Yeah, in return for him. So, listen, I don't think the Jets are basically looking to just throw out draft picks for players right now. But, I mean, this goes back to a couple things. The Oilers need to trim some salary, and the Winnipeg Jets have a glutted defenseman on the blue line. And I asked this to Marat, and I also asked this to Dustin Nielsen in Edmonton. I'll hit this to you. Puljujarvi to the Winnipeg Jets for Logan Stanley. $900K going out, $3 million coming in. Edmonton would get a cap savings of $2.1 million. And I would even say, maybe there's a fifth rounder or a later draft pick that would be going with Stanley if that's what it is. Who says no to that in your mind? The Oilers or the Jets? Or does it make sense for both teams? And then maybe your thoughts personally on it.
I think it's a home run for the Jets. I wonder how highly Chevy values Stanley. That's kind of an unknown, but it's pretty high if you consider that he decided to keep him over Dylan DeMello in the expansion draft a few years, and Dylan DeMello is this team's arguably top-ranked defenseman right now. I do
wonder how that. I mean, listen, time does change some things, and the season that he had last year, along with the predicament and the spot they're in, and the development of Dylan Samberg and Ville Heinola, to me, has maybe changed the situation a little bit for Stanley. Yeah. I'm with you. They've put a lot into this player. They protected him in the expansion draft. He is a guy I think that they have thought very highly of and do believe that can be a regular in the NHL. But I think they believe that as well about the other guys. And at a certain point, there's only so many guys that can play, which is what kind of got me thinking about this sort of a possibility.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. The interesting part, too, from a Winnipeg perspective is even if you're a Logan Stanley believer, I mean, the absolute highest ceiling you would put him at is a number 4 defenseman. But I think realistically he's a good third pair defenseman that will kill penalties for you and maybe even be your team's number 1 penalty killer. I think that's his best case scenario. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's still a decent amount of value in having a 6'7" guy that can give you some special teams time on the third pair there. But in all reality, if you're the Winnipeg Jets in this situation, you're trading your team's 7th, maybe 8th defenseman for a guy that can play immediately inside your middle 6 at the very least. Wherever the Jets want to put him, they can figure that out. I wonder if Edmonton would take the plunge on that. I wonder if they might try to shoot a little bit higher and say, well, what about a Brendan Dillon as opposed to a Logan Stanley? But
the thing is, they can't take the salary. I mean, the reason why I bring up Logan Stanley is that he's making $900,000 this year. Listen, if they're willing to trade him for a second or a third round pick, I mean, they're basically the reason why. And I know BA is saying, well, Stanley's not, established enough. Well, you know what else isn't established enough? A third round pick. Yeah. I mean, their number 1 priority in this is apparently moving him and getting the cap space. And this goes back to the conversation we've had about the Winnipeg Jets. The one thing that they've got right now in their favor is the ability to take on a little bit of salary. And I've thought for a long time that this would end with one of the defensemen being traded for a forward coming back. Originally, through most of the summer, it was name your guy of the 5 veterans that's making a little bit more, and the player coming back would be, if you're trading a $4 million defenseman, and maybe you're bringing a guy back at 5.5 or 6. And again, that's to the advantage of the other team that's getting that cap savings, and the Jets maybe get a player that fits more right now. But if that's not happening and they can't move those guys, and you've got these 3 younger defensemen that all need to play, the more I think about it, there's no long-term commitments on either player. They'll both be RFAs at the end of the year. Again, I have no idea how interested the Jets are in Puljujarvi. If they do think that he would be a nice fit, if they do think that they would make him a better team, there's a lot of evidence that would say that that is the case. And considering you can't play 8 defensemen at once, someone's going to be the odd person out. And if they think that Dylan Sandberg, and if they think that Philly Hanel are ready to go, and they've got the other pieces that can play that Logan Stanley role, the more I think about it, that's a conversation that I think would sort of be a win-win for both teams, considering their current predicaments. Yeah,
I guess, like, when you mention it, the only hesitation I have is, like, it seems too good to be true from the Winnipeg side of things. Like, I really can envision a scenario, even if Chevy is super high on Stanley, where you wouldn't accept that trade. Because, I mean, you're still getting it checks off all the boxes too. Like, sure, you're getting a middle 6 player, young. I mean, size is kind of a semi-big thing with the Winnipeg Jets, especially up front. They've made it well known they want to get, bigger and physical and more difficult to play against. He's got speed. He's cheap relatively and under team control as well. And he's from Finland. So he's used to the Winnipeg Winters, right? Like, it seems too good to be true. So there's just a part of me that's like, I don't know if Edmonton would take the bait there. If I was the Oilers GM in that situation and that was offered to me, I'd turn that one down pretty quick, to be honest. But
what would you rather have, Logan Stanley or a late second rounder or a third round draft pick?
What I was gonna get to is, like, I would say no, but if the Edmonton Oilers are basically willing to throw Puljujarvi on the scrap heap, then hey, I'll take a former first round pick defenseman if I'm willing to give this guy away for nothing. So I don't know. It seems too good to be true. If that happens and that plays out, all the credit in the world to Chevy for pulling one out of his behind this close to the regular season getting underway. I don't know. I feel like league wide value, Puljujarvi should hold more than Logan Stanley, but with the way the Oilers have been just so oddly anti-Puljujarvi, especially at the tail end of the year in the playoffs, maybe the Jets could pull off a bit of a gem here and make that happen.
Well, and listen, this goes back to Ryan Rashog's report earlier this year that Jesse Puljujarvi, or earlier this week, I should say, not this year, this week, as training camp's coming back. I mean, they're still in their cap predicament. They've got to make something happen. And I think they see that as a way to do exactly that. And this comes back to me. If the asking price is a mid-round pick for Jesse Puljujarvi, put it this way, I'm surprised that deal hasn't already been made by somebody in the National Hockey League. So maybe what we're getting is not entirely based in reality. But if that is the case, from an Oilers perspective that, hopes to, be a real contending team, even if Logan Stanley's not an everyday defenseman for you, I mean, that's a pretty good guy to have as your 6-7 that could go in, play a particular role at times, and certainly do something that probably not a lot of the other Edmonton defensemen do. Like, I put this to Dustin Nielsen off air before we did the lock shop. We were going to have him on, but he's flying this afternoon. And I hit him with the same topic. And I said, listen, you guys are, what we're hearing is right, and they're looking for a mid-round pick for Puljujarvi, wouldn't this make more sense?
Yeah.
And he said, I'll jump at that in a second. I mean, again, you $2.1 million of cap savings and a player that, again, what if there's a lot of people that believe Logan Stanley still has a pretty high upside. If you can achieve that and you were willing to trade this guy that was a 4th overall pick for a 3rd or 2nd rounder. I mean, anyways, I wanted to get your take on that because This all goes back to the theory that what makes the most sense for the Winnipeg Jets is to trade a defenseman and get a forward and maybe sweeten the pot by taking on a little bit more salary to help their club right now. And again, if it's not going to happen with some more expensive players, maybe we do it with some younger, cheaper players. And as I said, I mean, I would love to see Puljujarvi get a shot here in Winnipeg, because I think the Jets don't have the depth right now that would make it tough for him to come in and have a real legitimate opportunity to establish himself. And there's a reason why this guy was picked as high as he has been and has been relatively productive at times. I think it would be worth a shot.
Yeah. Well, and at that point, Chevy is like one infinity stone away from completing the gauntlet of the 2016 draft, right? He'll have the top 4 all finished out. That is just a few more picks. Maybe sign Oli Ulevi to a PTO or something. So I see no downside to that trade. And it only, again, even if you're a Logan Stanley fan, he's likely to start the season as a 7th defenseman. If you can get a middle 6 forward for your 7th defenseman, I do that trade all day in a heartbeat. It doesn't, moving Logan Stanley out doesn't make the Jets worse, but then bringing in somebody like a Puljujarvi who can give you 30, 40 points, it's a massive, massive win if it's there for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Again, I know we've been talking about this sort of concept of a deal for the last couple of days, but if you missed that, you want to get in on the comments in the YouTube chat, hit us up with your thoughts on it. Hey, before we go, what do you think about this game tonight? Mahomes, Herbert, primetime, Arrowhead, home opener. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be so wicked. It's going to be so awesome. I mean, seeing what both those guys did in week 1, and we were kind of joking about this before we came on, but Patrick Mahomes isn't dead. He's off the scrap heap. He's still got a little bit of game left.
Rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated by some of the dumbest people in sports media going into the season. May I add?
Like maybe a 24-year-old that's been to a couple Super Bowls and a couple AFC title games still is going to find a way to figure it out, even though Tyreek Hill's gone. I'm fat. To me, this game means more for the Chargers than it does for Kansas City. I think I really have no concerns about Kansas City as a team going far or winning 11 or 12 games or anything like that. But like for the Chargers, this is the year. And Herbert's shown that he's more than capable of carrying the load. It's not even necessarily him, but it's going to be, can the defense find a way to slow down Patrick Mahomes and can the offense get it going without Keenan Allen? That's a brutal, brutal loss. I mean, arguably the worst thing that could happen to their offense heading into this game because of everything that he does for Herbert right in the middle of the field there. I'm a little surprised the line is where it is. I think it was 4.5 the last time I saw.
It's 4 right now.
4 right now. That's a tough one. I don't even think I'm going to tangle with that one. I love both teams. I love both quarterbacks. I just give me 38-35 coming down to the last 10 seconds. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, take the over, folks. I was saying to Dusty on the lock shop, how high would this number have to get to consider taking the under on this game? It
75.
starts with a 6, I'll tell you. 85. Love it, Brandon. Fill people in on what's coming up with camp right around the corner over at Skates and Plates.
Yeah, so Skates and Plates, new episode coming out tomorrow, and then again on Tuesday. And training camps right around the corner here. So we'll talk about that. I mean, next Friday's episode is going to be all about what went on behind the mic there. And then we'll also do one of my favorite episodes before the season starts, the bold prediction episode, where, we might get 1 or 2 of them right out of 32, but it's a ton of fun. See what happens. Maybe we pick something crazy to happen. Last year, I thought Neil Pionk would be an all-star for the Winnipeg Jets. Just a little bit off on that one, but we'll have some fun with that coming up here.
Hey, you're 1 year off, baby. 1 year off.
There we go.
Bonus for Coach of the Year. How about that?
That could work.
Yeah, throw that in for my thing. That's my optimistic hope for a bold take, because if he wins the Coach of the Year, there's been a big turnaround here in the Peg. I'll look forward to it and can't wait to chat with you next week with the fellas on the ice.
Beauty. Have a great weekend, man.
You got it. There's Brandon Rewucki. Follow and Skates and Plates and download wherever you get your podcast. All right, we're gonna go from one to the other. I should have worn a hat today because our two favorite guests with the best hair are going back to back, and Rewucki was going one way today. Mo's going the other way. Moe Khan coming up right away. Before we do that, though, I have to thank Nick and Nikki DQ for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. It was great to have Nick on Tuesday with his full rundown of Burger Week here in Manitoba. They've got some amazing burgers at DQ. The Stack Burgers right now, the most underrated burger in the fast food game. And maybe it's because the Blizzards get all the headlines, but there's a good reason for that as well. Pop down and get your fill on at the Nick and Nikki DQ at one of 4 locations, the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And hit them up on Instagram as well at DQ Manitoba if you want to order a custom DQ ice cream cake for an event to pick up quick and easy at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. And hey, with this big game on tonight, maybe start the weekend early and you can make the night even better with a few of Winnipeg's favorite local beers, Little Brown Jug. The iconic 1919 and all the incredible Little Brown Jug offerings are available down at the Tap Room and Brewery on William Avenue, along with that gorgeous patio that hosted our first Winnipeg Sports Talk Sports Trivia Night a couple weeks ago. And if you're not making it downtown, you can pick up the great taste of Little Brown Jug at your local beer store or order online at littlebrownjug.ca for home delivery. And of course, tough night at Assiniboia Downs last night. We were not able to cash any tickets because the card was canceled due to a lighting malfunction. See what that means for the rest of the season. There's still 4 or 5 days left of live racing. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 885-3330 to make a reservation in the Terrace Dining Room. And Rewo and I will be back making picks on Monday, asdowns.com. And of course, you can bet on the track here in Winnipeg, tracks around the world at hpibet.com. All right, as I mentioned, from one great lid to another, the always well-dressed, supporting our Canadian soccer team heading to the World Cup, Moe Khan of TSN 690 in Montreal joins us now. Mo, man, what's up? It's great to have you back in the program. It's been a minute.
It has been, Andrew, I actually had bronchitis back in early August. So I was on the DL for a while of conversing. So I'm better now. I do have some hiccups of coughing here and there. I pray to the coughing gods that won't happen now during this epic segment that we'll have coming up right now.
Yeah, you know it. Listen, I want to talk some CFL with you as well as some soccer, but I mean, I just hit it with Brandon. I'm having a hard time thinking and concentrating about anything else. Thoughts on this tilt tonight to get week 2 going in the NFL with the Chiefs and Chargers?
Well, I feel bad for the American viewers because a lot of people don't have Amazon Prime, right? So a lot of people are going to miss this epic fight with LA and KC. And I think the key in this game, and coming into the year, I still believe KC was the team to beat in the AFC, them and Buffalo. And now for LA, this is the defense that they built up to beat Patrick Mahomes. You bring in J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, who had a monster game on Sunday against the Raiders, Sebastian Joseph, they shore up the running game, or the run defense, that is. This is now their chance to prove a point that they can lock down Patrick Mahomes on this critical matchup. Because if they don't, those questions are going to pop up about LA. Are they the team that is a bunch of pretenders? What happens with Coach Staley and his job? Because people question him at the end of the year for what he couldn't do against the Raiders in Week 18. And should they bring in Sean Payton at some point? So I just think this is a big statement game for the Chargers. And whereas for KC, look, Andrew, you're a big fan of the Chiefs. They know what they have to do, win and continue on here. And they got that chip on their shoulder, given that they blew that 18-point lead last year to the Bengals and want to prove a point that they're still a team to beat in the AFC.
Yeah, well, I joked that it was going to be a scorched earth revenge tour for Mahomes this year. It certainly looked that way in the game number 1. And for anybody with MVP futures, this game could be everything when it comes to that. One of these two guys is going to come out of this game at 2-0, having a big head-to-head win against one of the other favorites. And that could definitely shape much of the narrative we'll be hearing for the next little while until one of them has a bad game. But pretty much an incredible quarterbacking matchup that we will see tonight. Just quickly before we move on from the National Football League, it was just week 1, just the start of the season. And yet the Cowboys season seems to almost be over before it started. I mean, putting up 3 at home, Mike McCarthy sitting there going, what's going on? And then losing Dak Prescott for what could be 6 to 8 weeks, although Jerry Jones does not want to admit that and is not putting him on IR. I mean, what do you make of the mess in Dallas after only 60 minutes of football?
It's an unending river of diarrhea for the Cowboys. That's what they are right now. and now moving towards week 2 with what they have. And the schedule is supposed to get easier with the Giants and Commanders on deck. Then I think they got the Rams coming up in week 5, week 6, whatever it is. They have to figure out what they got to do with this quarterback position, because if they believe Cooper Rush is the guy, you stick with them. But if you don't think he's the guy, you have to go out and get yourself a quarterback that's going to keep the seat warm for Dak Prescott when he comes back. But there's some bigger issues than Dak. That O-line has not played well. They've been banged up. We know about the fact that Tyron Smith is out for pretty much the year, putting a rookie at left tackle. They don't have the same dominant front five as they once did. And I think now moving towards the rest of the season, if they can't get that running game essentially established in football games with Pollard and Zeke Elliott, this could be one of those situations where the Cowboys might end up being what they were 2 years ago and be probably 6-11, whatever 7 and whatever 10 team that might be for them this season. So a lot more questions, I think, for the O-line. And also, I want to see this defense play well, because they did not do that against the Bucs on Sunday Night Football, where they got bludgeoned by that running game for the Tampa offense with Tom Brady and, of course, Leonard Fournette.
Hey, I want to ask you about a Monday night matchup between two 1-0 teams. The Eagles, look good, although Detroit stormed back for the big backdoor cover in the fourth quarter in the first game. And the Vikings handled the Packers, and every time I looked over, I was watching the Chiefs game, but I looked over, and every time I looked at the screen, Aaron Rodgers was looking angrier and angrier as young receivers. Oh, by the way, Devontae Adams went for 140 and like a dozen catches in that game. But thoughts on the Eagles and Vikings going into that Monday nighter?
A fascinating battle, because you look at Jalen Hurts and what he has for firepower to work with, and you look at Kirk Cousins, what he has to work with. And this could, and for the gamblers out there, this could be on the overside in terms of what they can do for points for both teams here. What I'm intrigued by in this matchup is that Viking defense, because now they're going to a 4-3 front again and trying to work that through, and how they have some guys like Darius Smith out there to be a pass rusher. Can they get to Hurts? Can they contain Jalen Hurts in this football game and make him one-dimensional? If you take away his legs, Andrew, it could really stymie this Eagles offense, even though they have a really good ground game and a pretty good potent pass catchers to work with. So I think the fascination of that Viking defense and what they do on Monday Night Football will be key in why they could win this game against the Eagles.
Mo, training camps are opening up around the league. It's been a very interesting offseason for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, it's been quiet here in Winnipeg. We were just talking about some of the young players and the first rounders that are going out to Penticton to, cut their teeth before going into main camp next week. It was all about the draft, the Slovaks that were taken by the Montreal Canadiens. What's the buzz around a team that was in the Cup final one year, was the worst team in the league the next year? Where are they going into this season, and what are the expectations around Montreal?
Tempered expectations for a win-loss record, high expectations for Juraj Slafkovsky for what he can do. He was weighed in today or yesterday in Buffalo, or before they went to Buffalo for the rookie camp down in upstate New York. He weighed in, I think, at 225 at the draft combine. Today, Andrew, he's at 238.
Big boy.
And he carries it well. And that's what people have been saying, that he carries it well. And you wonder, given that he's only 18 years old, he's going to get bigger, stronger mentally and physically. Can he uphold that? I think he realizes that if he's going to be playing for the big club and play all 82 games during the regular season, that he has to make sure he can withstand the rigors of what that schedule will be like. So that's going to be the key going into training camp in Brossard in Montreal when they have that coming up next week. How does Slafkovsky adapt to the NHL level? Because remember, Andrew, this is a guy that wasn't really on the draft radar to be the first round pick for sure, but no one knew where he would go. And he had that ascension where he came up the ranks so quickly, the Olympics, the World Hockey Championships, impressing in the combine interviews, that Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, and the entire management team believed in what he said, that he's mature beyond his years. And now we'll get to see what he is as a potential foundation piece with him, Nick Suzuki, and other young guys coming up through the pipeline. So this team, we know from a win-loss record, will not be competitive, but from the fascination of growing and cultivating the prospects is what fans are really excited about going to this season under Martin St. Louis and, of course, Ken Hughes as the GM.
Mo, I was sort of caught off guard that they went and named Nick Suzuki the captain this early in his career. Were you?
Not really, because, even conversing with Nick in his first 2 years in the NHL, he has that demeanor that he can really control the locker room, understand the pulse of the team. And he has that confidence, that flow to him, Andrew, that you say, yeah, he can definitely be a leader of a franchise. And look, it's not uncommon. You think about it in Ottawa with Kachuk, Detroit, when they made Dylan Larkin the captain a few years ago, that you want to see where that player is going to be in the reaction of being in the firestorm of being the face of the franchise. And they believe that Suzuki, given he got the new contract from the team, could be the face of the franchise. And now moving forward, the biggest question, of course, because in Quebec, it's the elections coming up in a few weeks. The political firestorm came about. Can he speak French? Well, he's learning. And I think in this province, if he tries and gives an effort of conversing in French, they'll appreciate that from Nick Suzuki. And I think most importantly, though, they want to appreciate what he can do on the ice if he can be that foundation piece with Slavkovsky moving forward.
How big of a deal is that in Montreal? Like, what percentage of the fans care if Nick Suzuki is completely fluent in French?
Well, I don't want to get into too much of the language arts debate because it's such a deep-rooted topic in this province for many eons, right? But there is that pride, and again, from the Francophone community, there's that pride of having someone be from here and be the face of the franchise. But if you're coming in here, again, as I said, you don't have to be fluent, but as long as you embrace the culture, you can say a few words in French, they'll appreciate the effort. I just think it's more of the old school hardliners that we have from the political spectrum of Quebec that are kind of saying, well, no, he's got to learn French and be the face of the franchise. If that's the case, he's got to speak this language to perfection. But in reality, those guys aren't sports guys. They're just politicians trying to, rev up the votes in their favor going towards October 3rd in Quebec. So I just think from his perspective, as long as he understands the culture and can say a few words in French, they'll appreciate that moving towards however long he's in Montreal for the next 10 years.
Moe Khan is with us from 690 in Montreal. Moe, you're wearing a Canada, what is it, a Q-zip today for our Canadian men's national team?
A little chilly in Montreal, Andrew. I know what's like in Winnipeg today, but this would be perfect weather for golfing in the UK area if you're going to the Open out there.
Football weather. You did have some uniform breaking news. I know Remis always likes this. Is Canada the only team in the World Cup that's not getting new jerseys for this event?
So I was told back in the spring from a few people in the business that they weren't expected to have a kit come out for November. And the reason, there's a whole backstory to this, but I couldn't confirm it totally. But essentially, because the World Cup is being done in November and not the traditional summer months of June and July, that kind of stagnated the whole process of production for certain companies or certain countries out there. And unfortunately for Canada, they fell into that bracket where they were kind of caught in the middle of, well, do we do it? Do we not do it? And so they made a decision, I believe, back in late of last year to stick with their current look moving forward. And that's what they're going to have for the World Cup this year. But they'll have a new kit, I believe, in 2023 that will be there for 2 years. And they'll do a 2-year rotation and keep that rolling towards 2026.
Well, the countdown to Qatar is on. It's been pretty quiet around the team. What I know you're on the pulse of our men's national team as much as anyone. We're getting into September right now. World Cup, late November, such a weird time. But what's the latest on John Herman and the squad?
Well, they're going to have some friendlies coming up. That's going to be key for them because that will be the last couple of games that Herman will have to assess what he has available to the roster allocation of what they'll do for the final roster in early November when they finalize that team. So this is the last chance to see these guys up close. And the key now, Andrew, moving towards World Cup in mid-November is that you pray to the soccer gods no one suffers any serious injuries because that really puts a wrench in the whole process because guys might be out for the next 4 or 5 weeks that might be available, but may not be too healthy enough to go to Qatar. So that's going to be key for all the countries going to Qatar is the health of their players. And for John Herman, given that again, the pool of talent is starting to grow from a prospect perspective here. But from the ready-made guys, he's got to hope his top hitters are not going to get banged up before World Cup hits in mid-November.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Moe with us. Moe, before we go, and I always love our visits because we can just go around the horn. We haven't even talked about Roger Federer, although we did that with John Horn a little while. A huge loss for the world of sports. But I cannot have you on without talking about a little CFL football. See the number the Bombers did on their arch rivals, the Riders, last week in the Banjo Bowl. 12-1. Alouettes were the one team that beat them in ridiculous circumstances, shall we say. Can anyone stop the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Let's go through a little history. If you remember in '97, the Edmonton football team, the old name that they had, the Elks now, if you remember, they were running through the West Division, and they were supposed to host the Grey Cup in the backyard against the Argonauts, and they got upset by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We've seen it before, right, where you go 6-2, whatever it is, and lose in the West or East final. I think the Bombers do have some issues, though. The starts that they have to football games, they're sort of like a boxer, where they're not looking for the knockout punch, and they kind of let teams hang around a little bit here, and they play the rope-a-dope. And if you notice in the second half, they blow away teams and knock them out. I want to see them have better starts than before, because that West Division is a lot tougher than being a crossover team going through the East if you want to get to the Grey Cup in late November, Andrew. But I do like the Bombers' chances because, again, BC with no quarterback, Calgary with what they have with Mayer. Is he going to be the guy for them if Bo Levi's not, the guy for them? I think those teams have issues. But if you are a betting man right now, I'd definitely put money on the Bombers. Maybe not the best of the past two Grey Cup winning teams here, but definitely a team that can go very far in the playoffs and maybe win another Grey Cup for the third year in a row.
Yeah, I mean, to me, listen, I think the Bombers are clearly the best team in the league, and they've shown that, beating everybody, and they're 12-1 right now. It does. There is an element of nervousness knowing that in all likelihood it'll be Calgary coming in here. And man, it's tough to beat the same team 4 times in a season. The Bombers are already 3-0 against Calgary, and Calgary has been close in these games and will get one more shot. But then when you look at what the Bombers have done over the last 3 years, was just simply winning consistently and beating everybody. Pretty hard to go against them. Before we go, though, Alouettes cast-off Vernon Adams Jr. back in BC. Can he salvage the season for the Lions? And I mean, they're going to get a chance to go up against Calgary. I think Calgary is a 7-point favorite for a reason this week. But come playoff time, I mean, how good can Vernon Adams be in that BC offense? And with Vernon Adams, can they challenge Calgary for a shot at the champs in the West Final?
For every incompletion and every turnover the BC Lions have had, Nathan Rourke's adding another 0 to that contract that he will get from the BC Lions, right? But for Vernon Adams Jr., watching him play, and again, he had a very small prep week to face the Alouettes with Pipkin, who's not a quarterback. I think that's a starting caliber for the CFL. For Vernon Adams Jr., the question for Rick Campbell is, can he play to his strengths, which is allow him to improvise in the pocket, buy himself time, and create plays on the run. If you put him in a structure where you're going to ask him to throw 50-plus times, that's not his game. So they need to get a strong running game from the BC Lions ground attack. But I think the Lions have probably one of the best receiving corps in the league. And all VA's got to do is just put it there and let the Cotoys and let the Burnhams of the world and the Lucky Whiteheads of the world catch that football and create the yak for them to get first downs and more. So keep it simple for VA. I think he'll make this team competitive. But, man, this CFL lost Nathan Rourke. I lost out to watch him in person last week for TSN doing stats for the broadcast. And if he was there, Andrew, I think the Nathan Rourke mania would have been a lot more different for the Lions. Maybe we're talking about them competing with the Bombers for the 1 spot, then try and compete with BC or Calgary now for the number 2 spot in the playoff race.
No doubt about it. Mo, great stuff. What's keeping you busy right now? I know you were doing a ton of play-by-play throughout the last couple of months. Does the list keep growing as we get into the busy fall and winter?
Yeah, I'll tease your listeners and viewers, but there will be an announcement coming up in the next week or so, 10 days. I can't say what it is yet. Maybe I'll text you afterwards, but I will announce in the next 10 days some new projects on the horizon, which I'm looking forward to. And a lot of play-by-play right now for the university and stage up ranks as well. CEBL, look, they're expanding. They went to Vancouver officially as the rebrand. Calgary got a team. I think
we need a team.
I think Winnipeg is on the docket. I don't know when, Andrew, but I think in the next 2 years we'll see a team in Winnipeg. That natural geo rivalry with Saskatchewan will be fun to watch if and when Winnipeg gets a team in the CEBL in the next couple of years, I think.
Oh, man, I think back to the old days of the Winnipeg Thunder, first of all, and the way they were supported. And the sports market is very different right now, but basketball has exploded. There is so much participation in the city right now at a grassroots level. And obviously, I think the popularity of basketball overall in Canada is light years ahead of where it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. So makes a lot of sense. The biggest thing right now is, between the Jets and the Moose and the Ice and, there's just a building availability where this thing could happen. But I would love to see it, and we'll certainly be behind it if it does happen some point soon. Mo, great stuff as always. You be well, my friend. It was great to have you back on the program, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Hopefully my bronchitis is now over and I can converse properly without coughing in between sentences moving forward.
Looking good, sounding good, my friend, as always.
Thanks, my dude.
Thanks, my
Be
man.
good.
There it is, at Moe Khan 19. That's our good friend Moe Khan in Montreal. And you can follow him, as I said, Moe Khan 19, and check out his work as well, along over at TSN 690. Yes, I like Jay Miller. Bring back the Thunder. Man, I had so much fun at those games back in the day. JJ Eubanks, Joey Vickery. Those are some good times. And I can tell you straight up, there is a basketball community here that I think would be all over competing against teams across Canada in the CEBL. And hopefully that is to come. Doesn't sound like it's this upcoming season, but certainly in a year or two, it would be great to be part of that. All right, let's get Remis back in here. We had to leave some time because this is going to seem like a bit of a throwback to the warm-up because we've got some hilarious stories to get to before the end of the show. I do, though, want to give first off, this is not funny, but this is a great award to a great guy that does an incredible job, and that is Steve Schuster, the play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Filled the massive shoes of Paul Edmonds and has been doing it ever since. And Steve Schuster was named the Broadcaster of the Year today through the American Association. He is, Steve is a real student of the game, adds an incredible level of analysis as well. And there's something to be said, Remis, I'm sure you can agree, about guys, and Paul would be the first one to tell you, sitting in that booth by yourself for 100 games over the season, telling stories and taking people through the action via radio is a special talent, especially for the guys who do it in a one-man booth.
Oh yeah, that is tough job there. The travel of the road. I do enjoy Steve's work on Twitter as well. So congratulations to Steve. And you were wondering, when Paul left, like how could you get someone to fill those shoes? And he's done a really awesome job. So huge congrats to Steve Schuster, named Broadcaster of the Year.
All right, listen, before we get to this chess controversy, as it were, as well as an incredible, spectacular social media fail from last night that got all Blue Jays fans everywhere all riled up, let's get to the Coolbet lines for tonight. Dustin Nielsen will be firing out his daily pick from the Lock Shop very soon. You can get that on my social media feed, as well as today's Lock Shop. We did about 20 minutes focusing in on this game with our legs. We're going head-to-head. I'm obviously on the Chiefs. He's on the Chargers on the spread right now, which is, I believe, still 4 points. +4, -4, and -104 on either side. To be honest, I don't mind getting a half point here and getting the -3.5 at -120. And I'll say the same thing about the total right now. Over-under on this game is 54. And I did joke that it would have to be 65 to even consider taking the under. Brandon went with 85. But that hook, that half point between 53.5 and 54 is significant. So I think when I was making my wagers in the Lock Shop earlier, I went with the -114 for over 53.5. There's all sorts of props, and we talked about many of them on the Lock Shop. One that I particularly like, go figure, Patrick Mahomes, over 2.5 touchdowns. I'll probably be making that wager every game all season long, but it's plus money on that, +108 for over 2.5 touchdowns. But if you go to the Coolbet specials for you cool bettors out there, I basically last night was putting together a bet builder, talked to my guys Pat and Jake, and we've got a Hustler-made exclusive for tonight's game at a pretty juicy number, just about 10-1, +975. Here's how it lays out. Over 53.5. That was that number. We're getting the extra half point. So over 53.5, and Chiefs win. They don't have to cover the number, just a Chiefs win. I think there's going to be fireworks in this game. I think both quarterbacks are going to have big nights. I've got Patrick Mahomes at 3 or more touchdowns. That was the prop at +108 I was mentioning. And Justin Herbert to throw 2 or more touchdowns in the game. And we've also added in 2 receivers. Mike Williams over 59.5. No Keenan Allen. I think he gets targeted all night long. I think this one maybe is as sure of going over as anything in this, or frankly on the board tonight. And I do like MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. to have a bigger game. He was very quiet in the first game. And the one thing I think Andy Reid has said, Patrick Mahomes has said, is that this ball is going to be spread around this year. And while Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster might very well be taking the priority for the Chargers defense, I think that's going to allow MVS to go and have a big first home game as a Chief at Arrowhead Stadium. So we've got him in at over 39.5 yards. So to recap, Chiefs to win, over 53.5, 3 or more passing touchdowns for Mahomes, 2 or more for Herbert, and then over 59.5 on Mike Williams, and MVS over 39. That is now up to 975. And so you see it, Hustlers exclusive there in the Coolbet exclusives. If you've never played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit and get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your deposit at Coolbet. Enjoy the game tonight. It should be incredible. Remo, I haven't asked you what your thoughts on tonight are. Over under, you got a side at -4, just a money line win, a fantasy pick. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it seems like Keenan Allen is out. I see a lot of people mentioning that chat, but I think Josh Palmer going to be the beneficiary of him being out. So I don't know if you want to throw down. Trying to pull up the
Dusty had
here.
him in the lock shop to get into the end zone,
Yeah.
I believe 2-1 plus 200 on a Josh Palmer touchdown. Forgot that he was Canadian.
He's
too.
Canadian. Yeah, he's Canadian as well. So I would be in for that. So I'll go that. I'm looking at some over unders. Yeah, he's 485.5. Might be high, but sure. Want to do a little touchdown score? I mean, Justin Herbert over 283 yards. If you think they're going to be down and this is a shootout, this is a guy who could throw for a ton of yards.
I think they're both going to have to. I mean, think about these games. I think you're going to see them go on fourth down quite a bit. I think both coaches are going to be uber aggressive, and I think that's why we're in for a real treat tonight on Thursday Night Football. And yes, Canadian fans, the game is on TSN, Amazon Prime. I wonder if, I have Amazon Prime, could I also watch it on Amazon Prime, Remis, or is it not available in Canada because TSN has the rights?
I don't know, actually. I didn't really think about that. Once I heard it was on TSN, I was great. I'm Prime as well. Do they have it on there? I don't know. Are we getting the Al Michaels broadcast just on TSN? I think that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it will be. It will be that, and we'll report tomorrow and let you know because we both have it. It's funny. The only, me, I don't watch movies really ever, and almost no shows outside of sports and news and that sort of thing. The one service that I do have is Amazon, because when we started this, you sold me on how good Amazon Prime was.
The best.
So I do watch the odd thing on Amazon Prime, and the music as well. It's a pretty cool service, and that was before they had the Chiefs and Chargers on Thursday Night Football. So enjoy the game tonight. But let's get to it. We'll save the chess story for a minute, because let's talk about the self-own, the ratio, and the cancellation, because we haven't talked Blue Jays. Big win for the Jays last night, having a great series against the Tampa Bay Rays. And after last night's win, the Jays find themselves in second place in the AL. And, funny, only 6 games back of the New York Yankees, who just have not been playing very well overall, but have won 8 of their last 10 after a real blip, after just an absolutely rocket start to the season. So the Jays up 1.5 games on the Rays and 5.5 games on the Baltimore Orioles. But Remo, the big story last night was a tweet, and I didn't want to bring this up with Moe because I think he may have actually worked with Matthew Words at 690 in the past and has done some work with him, so I didn't want to put him in a bad situation. But this guy, Matthew Ross, decided that he was going to make himself the central figure on Twitter, quote tweeting a Sportsnet piece of the Alejandro Kirk scoring from first base on a double, which was Alejandro Kirk is a hot water tank that is a hitting machine. And he was started in the All-Star game this year. He's had this amazing season and an amazing career. He's a special player, but he doesn't look like a lot of other guys. And essentially, Matthew Ross, I don't know if you have it up, you want to get it,
I'll bring it up.
Basically said that, I believe you referred to, it's cute and all, but this is embarrassing for baseball to be putting out a player like that. Now, I don't know where the hell he's been. I mean, we've had Bartolo Colon, Big Papi. I mean, going back to John Crook with the Phillies. I mean, there are some guys that don't look like your prototypical athletes that are amazing baseball players. To me, that's good for the game. He took this stand that this was embarrassing for baseball and bad for the game. And Jay's pitcher, Alek Manoah, was having none of it, and quote tweeted it and basically took this guy down, said, you know what, if you're telling the kids that are 8 and 10 years old that they should go, here it is. What's actually embarrassing for the sport is people that go by the name of Matthew, which was a dig, obviously. He wasn't happy, and have never played a day in the big leagues, thinking they control the narrative and stereotype. Go and tell that 8-year-old kid who's 10 pounds overweight that he should quit now, and then continued on to say what a hell of a player Manoah is. And then Ross actually doubled down on his take that it was embarrassing for the sport. And Manoah said, step aside and flip from the keyboard and let Kirk inspire those kids to continue to chase those dreams and chase greatness. And in some of his infinite wisdom, this Matthew dude decided to say that, Manoah was somehow, misinforming people and twisting his words of what he said. I have never seen a worse ratio in the history of Twitter, Remis. There was a couple of tweets by him that had over 200 comments and literally 0 likes. There's nothing that brought the Jays fan base together even more than the game, than this little Twitter spat. But what was interesting was that the guy that seemed to be trying to, kind of make himself the story with this hot take, by the end of the night had deleted his Twitter, his Instagram, his Facebook. And for a guy in the media, that is a major step to take, especially after it being completely self-inflicted.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed to see him tweet that. I had him on 1290. He's a fellow member of the tribe. I know he's done some work in the community in Montreal as well. For him to tweet out that Alejandro Kirk was embarrassing, really disappointing. And you can't go on Twitter and body shame anyone. He's clearly an elite athlete, hitting a baseball, maybe the hardest thing to do for a regular person in sports. Like, you could go out in hockey and take a glide around and still be on, but like stepping into the batter's box as a regular guy going up against 100+ mile an hour heat, like, you can't do that. That's nearly impossible. So, rightfully so, got ratioed, and Alek Manoah saw it and he wasn't having that and threw down, and everyone went after him. I was kind of disappointed that he deleted his account. I mean, own up, say you made a mistake.
Yeah.
I think deleting it makes you look worse. So,
well, and there was a way out afterwards. I mean, he could have, especially after getting burned by Manoah, he could have said, he could have taken it back. He could have apologized, said that it came out the wrong way. No, doubled down on it and made himself the victim. And that just got people even more fired up. And it was going to end badly. You knew it. The first time you saw that tweet was that he was walking into a hornet's nest and unwillingly put himself as the target of everyone. And we always say, Remo, every day, just wake up, try not to be the main character on Twitter. And unfortunately, Matthew Ross made himself the main character on Twitter and ended up, ironically, somewhat canceling himself from social media. And I'm sort of with you. I do feel for the guy because it's obviously really impacted him. And, going forward to, erase everything that he has internet-wise is a pretty big move for a guy that I believe is still working somewhat in the media.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if he's doing like full-time sports now, but I mean, he's on Twitter, and look, you're going to put stuff out there. You got to be prepared. And, some people, I'm not saying necessarily him, but some people like to put out every single thought that they have. And, I don't think
not a good idea.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think you got to take some time to think about it. And if you're going to body shame professional athlete and then a guy on that member of one of his teammates starts coming after you, maybe it's time to admit you made a mistake. And Stonewall Dave says in chat, the hardest thing to do on Twitter is realize you're being the jerk and admit. I'm like, well, I don't think it's hard. You just realize that you are and admit it. But he says, take the L. Yeah. Well, I don't think
your
deleting
inbox is full of 500 angry people saying, what the hell are you talking about? It might be a moment to take in the Twitter. So a very cautionary tale last night for bad takes on Twitter.
I don't think that was I think that was like offensive to people who were different body types. I don't think it was a bad take too, but
I was triggered. I was triggered. I mean, listen, Alejandro Kirk is a hero of many of us chunkier dudes that have been throughout. And to be honest, it's great for baseball. It's the stupidest thing. Like, you think that we're talking about this if he wasn't 5'8", 240 and doing what he's doing right now?
Well, he wasn't all-star.
People love
too.
Bartolo Colon. He started the freaking all-star game. Kung Fu Panda, I saw Cabillas popping in there. I mean, listen, to me, guys like that are performing at the level Alejandro Kirk are amazing for the game. And this was just an absolute whiff and miss. And sometimes, as the people in chat have said, take your L, sit down and live to play another day. And unfortunately for Matthew Words, that did not happen. Now, Room, I've got to get to this story. I tweeted this out yesterday night. I did not expect this chess controversy to come across my timeline. And it might be the most ridiculous headline I think I can ever remember. It reads this: chess grandmaster denies using anal beads to beat world number one Magnus Carlsen. A chess grandmaster has responded to bizarre claims that he used anal beads to beat world number one Magnus Carlsen. The world champion, number 31, withdrew from the CFL Cup last week after an unexpected defeat to 19-year-old Hans Niemann, a relative newcomer to the world of professional chess. Carlsen announced his withdrawal from the tournament with a cryptic tweet, which included a video of football manager Jose Mourinho saying, "If I speak, I am in big trouble." Now, Niemann has previously admitted to cheating in online chess tournaments as a youngster, prompting fans to speculate whether the San Francisco-born player beat Carlsen fairly. Here's where it gets interesting and bizarre, to say the least. A bizarre theory circulating online claims Niemann could have used an accomplice, computer assistants, and vibrating anal beads to beat Carlsen, who was on a 2-year unbeaten run before they're matched. And then fans on Twitter said things like, currently obsessed with the notion that Hans Niemann has been cheating at the Schneekfield chess tournament using wireless anal beads that vibrate him the correct moves. Elon Musk also dived into it and had some takes before deleting those tweets on it. Listen, I'll be honest. I don't know much about the world of professional chess.
Oh, I thought you were going to say anal beads. That you do know about that?
Not really. And I'm not, like, I don't know what would have to, like, the amount of scientific ingenuity to put electric vibrators in some sort of rigged up anal beads for an event like this. I think there'd be a lot into it. But then when you put a wild conspiracy theory out that happens after a shocking event like the world number one undefeated in 2 years losing to a relative unknown, it gets a lot of run. And let me just say that people were enjoying that last night and having a lot of fun with it on social media.
People just like crazy theories. Remember when we were on here like a month ago saying, "Oh, Tom Brady's gonna be on The Masked Singer. That's why he was."
I was so there for that one. I was the most guilty of it. I talked about it for 2 days, and now we're finding out that, as BSO, my guy Robert Littell said, Brady's basically been kicked out of the house because he wants to spend more time with Mike Evans than Giselle. Giselle will be fine. I mean, she's obviously quite loaded. But yes, I don't believe the theories of Tom Brady being a missing training camp to be on The Masked Singer were true. I certainly retract, although I was giddy about the possibility of it. This one, though, is even more bizarre. Good for the world of professional chess, though? I'm not sure. I doubt we'd be talking about the Sigfield Cup if this conspiracy theory was not floating out there.
The Sigfield Cup, nice. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics, like how it would work with the buzzing and knowing. It sounds too far-fetched to me. I want to believe that it's true.
Watching it. Someone's watching it. And they've got some supercomputer, which are really the only things that can match up against these grandmasters. And, the guy makes his move. The computer, thinking at, some sort of crazy rate, gives you the move. And then, it's like three vibrates on the anal beads is the rook, maybe 4. I mean, I don't know. There would be some sort of code that you would just feel on the beads that would tell you what move to make. And then you beat the world number 1 and shock the world.
Does it have to? I mean, the guy said that he had cheated previously in online chess.com tournaments. But, like, couldn't it be some other way to cheat? Does it have to be anal beads? Like, can it be some other thing? It just seems
I think the reason for that is it could be, like, it's internal. Like, there's
Are they giving him a pat
outward.
down?
He said that he'd be happy to play in the nude in a vibrationless box or something like that afterwards, although the damage has been done and he's not. But we will stay on top of this. If there's any further developments on the latest controversy in the world of professional chess, we'll get down to it. We had to mention that for you. And Rio, before we go, can we talk about this Matt Ryan ball that is going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame? This can't be real, can it? This has to be doctored.
I saw this in my pop-up in my timeline, and I'm like, oh, man, I need to send this to Hustler. But then I saw the reason why it was on my timeline was that you had already liked it. So in week 1, Matt Ryan became the 8th quarterback in NFL history to reach 60,000 career passing yards. The ball that he passed to reach that milestone was here's a picture of the ball as I bring it up here, was number 283. Well, why is, I looked at the numbers like 283. Wait a second. Yes.
28-3.
28-3. Yes, there it is. 283 on the ball. And yes, that is 28-3. The score the Atlanta Falcons led over the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl with 2:12 left in the third. And they ended up losing in overtime to the Patriots.
Could they not have just made it 284 or something like that to avoid this dubious tie-in?
Crazy.
Now everything about this entire display will not be about the 60,000 yards. It'll be once again trolling Falcons fans for the biggest choke job in Super Bowl history.
So the Falcons lost to the Saints over the weekend, and I saw a graphic where it showed these. Did you see this thing?
Yes.
Okay, I gotta find this. Where it was like all these games where the Falcons led by a lot with, not a lot of time left. And they lost like a ton of games. I need to find.
And the reason why it was brought up is because the Falcons were up 26-10 on the Saints in week 1, and then all of a sudden Jameis Winston goes off for 200 yards in the fourth quarter, and they come back, score 2 touchdowns, get the ball back, and win on a field goal and win 27-26.
Here it is.
This is old hat for the Falcons, dating all the way back to 28-3, and old habits die hard for this club more than maybe the rest of the NFL put together.
Okay, but it's not even the same team anymore. And here's the graphic. So 28-3 in the Super Bowl with 238 in the third. Okay, 5:59. They're beating San Diego. 5:59 in the fourth, beating San Diego 30-20, and they lost. They're beating the Dolphins 17-0 with 12:50 left in the third in a game. This is a crazy one. Leading 39-24 over the Cowboys with 4:57 left in the fourth quarter, and you lost that game. And then this one's even nuts too. 26-10 leading over the Bears with 6:22 in the fourth, and you lost. And then again 24. Now some of these are like 2 scores with a lot of time. So there's a couple here that are silly. This Cowboys one, the Super Bowl one, and this Bears one. Like leading with 5. If you're leading by 2 scores, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you can't close it out like repeatedly. It's a different team now, though, and different coach. So
different coaches, different
franchise?
players.
Is that what it is?
Listen, there's something going on there, and if it doesn't start with 28-3, this never is a conversation, probably ever again. But because it then became the narrative that when they had all these other epic choke jobs, including the way they started week 1 without Matt Ryan, with Marcus Mariota, that will be a conversation. Anyways, fun way to finish the program. Maybe we'll do the uniforms tomorrow.
Yeah, we got signings too. We never touched on.
Some more PTOs. PTO
there
fest.
Actually are. Well,
National
I'll
Hockey
say
League?
one PTO because people had mentioned him in chat. Alex Shiasan, forward, signed a PTO with the Coyotes, who were $20 million under the cap, but it's okay. They're going to be making way more money this year with 5,000 fans than they were before with less than that in the big arena, right?
Derek Brassard and Michael Del Colli, PTOs in Ottawa. Yeah. Sean Dursey, 2-year extension in LA at 1.7 mil AAV. And it sounds like this Jordan Kyrou deal is done. Same money as Robert Thomas. They're 2 cogs going forward. 8 by 8.125, $65 million. And Stars GM Jim Nill, a 1-year extension, which is sort of an interesting number.
That was earlier this week. The one storyline going on now, I guess the NHL superstars are in Vegas for a media tour, and John Madish, senior NHL writer for The Score, just tweets out, Nathan McKinnon says his extension with the Avalanche is pretty close, and he's hoping it'll get done soon. As far as AAV, it will be fair, not going to be a single digit. Does that mean like a 9? So it's going to be over 9.9?
I would assume that would be, I guess the way
I read
what he means?
This.
Is the way that's the way I read it. I guess we'll have to listen
single
to
digit,
it.
Or does he mean he's getting like $1?
He's not going to be getting paid $8 a year. Well, I think we know that. I would have a feeling it's probably going to be 8 figures on the AAV. And hey, I mean, the guy's earned it, and he's been playing for the last 6 years at maybe the best value contract in the National Hockey League at $6 million. So, or a 6.67, something like that. Hey, when you win the cup and you have the season that he had, you're going to get paid. A lot of the other guys on that team, Makar, Rantanen, have already got their money. The next guy to get it is Nate McKinnon, and is probably a little bit overdue. There's some back pay owed for everything that he's done with his incredible career for the Colorado Avalanche. All right, gang, that is going to do it for us. We got to get these podcasts up. Thanks so much for being with us. Enjoy the game tonight. And we'll have a great show tomorrow. Get ready for Bombers, Ticats. Ted Wyman's going to jump on the show. Much more on the Jets rookie camp, and a look ahead to full training camp with Ken Wiebe. A little NFL notebook with Hacksaw Lee Hamilton, and all the usual laughs here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, make sure you've hit the subscribe button and give us the thumbs up on your way out if you haven't already. Tell a friend about WST, where they can find us, and make sure to join us tomorrow for a Friday edition, including the marble race, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.